Hi, this is Ingvar welcoming you to this video, and today I would like to share with you a truly amazing study. Now, this study was made by the Israeli born Yochanan Afek, who I believe lives in the Netherlands. He was born in 1952, so yeah, he's in his mid-60s. And I encourage you to take a shot at solving it, but it's truly amazing. It's worth your time. But I will now go over the study. Now, the first thing that we observe is that the black king is attacking the rook and the pawn is attacking the knight. So white must do something about this situation. Of course, it's white to move. I forgot to mention that. So what can we do? A move like knight e5 comes to mind. This will indeed win the rook on b8, on f8. But it turns out that it's not enough. After bishop takes g4, knight h7, we will indeed win the pawn on g5. But after a simple move like bishop d1 and b4, black will exchange off the last white pawn, and you can check this with a table base. These are 6 pieces, and this is a draw. So we have to go back. Knight d5 doesn't work, so we have to find the first move here. If you move the rook somewhere, simply b captures on c4. So what can we do? The first move is already amazing. It's rook takes b5 check. Well, this takes care of one of the problems. Our knight is no longer attacked, but we're sacrificing a rook. But for what? King takes on b5. What do we do now? We open up a discovery. Knight to e5. We check the king with the bishop. Now where does the king go? It's a bit tricky, because if we go to either of these two squares, we're going to give a check here. So let's examine that. If king b6, knight d7, king c6, just like before, but now we have a big difference. We're going to take the pawn on g5, and there's no longer a pawn on b5 like before, which can, like before, they can push to b4. So black can't liquidate to a draw, and this will be winning for white. Eventually we're going to run off the a pawn, and we're going to win this game. So we go back, knight d5 check. So we can't really go to b6 or c5. So the trickiest option is actually to go with the king to a4. But then, what's the idea here? We gave up a rook for what? For an attack on the rook? No, it's more than that. We're threatening checkmate on 2 squares. If the knight arrives on b6 or c5, it's going to be checkmate. And we're of course aided by the bishop covering this diagonal, so the king doesn't have a lot of squares here on a4. So a very strong threat. So what can black do? He can't move the rook and protect against the mate, because the only available square on the chessboard that does that is the c6 square, and that's not a legal transfer of the rook, so we have to find something. If there is something. And like in the most amazing studies, you will find excellent defensive moves, and black has a great defensive move here. I again encourage you to take the time to find it if you already haven't. Black has the amazing resource here, bishop to e2. Now, if we take the rook, and of course I just take the bishop, I will go back to e2, and I will eat the pawn on g4. White will not win this. Okay, so I will take the bishop. What's black's big idea here? We're still attacking the rook, and we're still threatening mate. Nothing has changed. We're going to give mate here or here, and the bishop is still on this diagonal here. So what are we going to do? Well, black says, I have an idea. Rook b8 check, son. What you gonna do? Do not hurry in chess. Very important. If knight takes b8, it's a stalemate. The king can't move. So a great defensive resource once again by black. So what can we do here? What about just moving the king? King a2. Well, I have the same idea. Rook b2. It's still stalemate if you take. And if you don't take, I will take your bishop. Okay. What else do we have? King a1. Well, then I move the rook. Let's say here, I attack your bishop. And if the bishop moves, I take the pawn on a3. And all of a sudden, white introduces the option of losing, although this is most likely just a draw. So, what do we do here? What's the magic move? The amazing move here is bishop to b5. Amazing. Interposing the jack with a jack. First thing to note is that if king takes b5, knight takes b8. Now we can take the rook, there's no stalemate. Okay, but what if you just take rook takes b5? Well, then the simple, calm move, king a2. And look at this outstanding, amazing domination of the rook. The pawns, the red circles, they cover the red squares. The king, the blue circles. The green circles immediately covered by the knight. So the only squares available to the rook, and mind you, the rook is the only piece that can move. The only squares available are the yellow squares. But what happens on the yellow squares? We're gonna give you a check. Let's try one. That's a check. Let's try another. That's also a check. And let's try the third. It's a check as well. So we win the rook on all the squares and we get the winning endgame. A truly amazing study, and this needs to be shared with everybody. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you later, guys. Bye bye.